What if the moments that confuse you the most, the pauses, the patterns, the strange sensation that something is unfolding just beneath the surface of your life, were not random at all, but precise responses from a hidden layer of reality reacting to your awareness? Something happened inside Google's quantum lab that shouldn't feel possible. A chip, no bigger than the palm of your hand, began producing results that classical reality couldn't keep up with. Not because physics broke, but because our intuition did. For decades, we believed reality was solid, predictable, and ultimately explainable if we just had enough data and enough computing power. And then quietly, that belief started to fracture. Because if a machine can enter a regime we can't even fully simulate, then there's a question humanity has avoided for centuries. What if reality was never meant to be predictable? Most people move through life assuming the world is something external, something that happens to them. You wake up, react, adapt, repeat. Cause leads to effect. Time moves forward. End of story. And yet, deep down, you've probably felt something else at work. A subtle knowing. A sense that your thoughts, emotions, and inner state somehow matter in ways no one ever clearly explained. Moments when life feels strangely responsive, almost as if it's listening. This isn't imagination. This is where quantum consciousness begins to whisper. In the last few decades, science crossed a threshold that made many people uncomfortable. Experiments in quantum physics revealed that, at the most fundamental level, particles don't behave like objects at all. They exist as probabilities, waves of potential, until something observes them. The moment awareness enters the equation, the quantum field responds. This isn't philosophy, it's measurable. And once you truly understand that observation alters outcome, a dangerous realization follows. Consciousness is not passive, it participates. This is usually where explanations stop, because this is where certainty dissolves. If reality is shaped by observation, then what you call the external world isn't fully external. It's entangled with perception, expectation, and the subconscious mind. Your emotional vibration, your dominant frequency, the patterns running quietly beneath your awareness, may be influencing outcomes long before logic catches up. That heaviness you've felt lately, the sense that something in you is being pressed to wake up, may not be psychological at all. It may be the early stages of a spiritual awakening, triggered by resonance with the field itself. You were never taught to see reality this way. Society trained you to think linearly, to believe cause and effect only move forward. And that consciousness is merely a byproduct of the brain. But quantum mechanics disrupted that story. Consciousness appears woven into reality, not produced by it. And when awareness shifts, reality reorganizes. That's why moments of clarity often coincide with sudden changes, synchronicities, or the collapse of old patterns that no longer match your frequency. If you've ever felt out of place in the world, overly sensitive to energy, emotions, or environments, there is a reason. When your internal frequency no longer aligns with unconscious patterns, the system resists you. That resistance is often mislabeled as anxiety, confusion, or emptiness. In truth, it's feedback. The quantum field doesn't punish, it mirrors. And the mirror becomes sharper as consciousness expands. Here's what almost no one tells you. Your subconscious mind isn't just storing memories and habits. It's acting as an interface between consciousness and the field. Most reality creation doesn't happen through deliberate thought. It happens through emotional coherence, belief structures, and identity. The silent signals you broadcast without realizing it. When those signals change, reality responds differently. Doors open that never opened before. Others quietly dissolve. This is why awakening often feels destabilizing before it feels empowering. Old interpretations collapse faster than new ones form. The mind searches for certainty, but the quantum nature of existence offers none. Instead, it offers participation. You are not here to control reality. You are here to synchronize with it. And this brings us to the part nobody talks about, the point where quantum science, hidden reality, and lived human experience intersect in a way that permanently changes how you see yourself. Because once you sense that reality responds to awareness, vibration, and perception, a deeper question begins to form. If the field is always listening, If consciousness is always involved, then what has your inner state been teaching reality to reflect back to you all this time? Before we go deeper, let's pause for a moment and make this a conscious exchange, not just something you listen to in the background. If this perspective resonates with you, take a second to engage with it. Leaving a comment, liking the video, or subscribing isn't about numbers or pressure. It's how this channel stays visible, so this kind of conversation can reach people who are quietly searching for it. Growth here means access. More minds, more perspectives, more awareness expanding together. This space is being built as a community for people who are willing to look carefully, think deeply, and stay present with ideas that challenge how we understand reality. Your interaction tells the algorithm that this content matters, that it should be shared responsibly, and that these questions deserve to keep circulating. Before we go deeper, comment, "I'm still here," if you want the full story, because the last part connects this chip to something you've probably felt in your own life. In the next section, we'll move from theory into something far more personal, where quantum technology and human experience start overlapping in ways most people never expect. In the next section, everything tightens. Because here's the unsettling part most people were never prepared to hear for decades. The unspoken belief inside modern science was that, with enough power, a classical computer could approximate almost anything. Reality was assumed to be complex, yes, but ultimately traceable, predictable in principle. That assumption quietly collapsed the moment quantum processors entered regime's classical simulation could no longer follow. Quantum processors don't approximate reality. They behave like it. They evolve through superposition, interference, probability. When Google Quantum AI introduced Willow, their next-generation quantum chip, it wasn't framed as a philosophical breakthrough. It was described as progress toward a large-scale, error-corrected quantum computer. That sounds technical, almost boring, until you understand what it implies. A machine that can stay coherent long enough to enter states the classical world cannot track, compress, or intuit. This is why people say the simulation failed, not because physical laws changed, but because our ability to follow them collapsed. The chip runs, the equations still hold, but the complexity explodes faster than our models can keep up. We're left observing outputs we can verify, but not fully visualize. A kind of black box reality unfolding in real time. And that's where the discomfort begins. Because the moment you accept that reality can evolve in ways your mind can't simulate, a deeper parallel emerges. In quantum consciousness, spiritual awakening feels the same. As perception expands, old mental models stop predicting experience. The subconscious mind, trained for linear cause and effect, loses authority. You begin sensing a hidden reality beneath appearances, a field responding to vibration, frequency, and coherence rather than control. This channel exists to explore that edge carefully, without exaggeration and without fear. If this perspective feels grounding, engage consciously. A comment strengthens the exchange. A like helps this signal reach others questioning reality quietly. Subscribing supports a growing community focused on clarity and expansion of consciousness, not noise. Because as we move forward, the line between quantum machines and human perception grows thinner. And what this reveals about the nature of reality is only beginning to surface. And yet, the real obstacle was never power. It was never speed. The true enemy of the quantum world has always been error, noise, fragility. In a quantum system, one uncontrolled interaction with the environment is enough to collapse coherence and dissolve information back into randomness. For years, this fragility was treated as the final boundary, proof that quantum computing would remain impressive but impractical. That assumption shaped expectations quietly, the same way limiting beliefs shape perception inside the subconscious mind. Here's the turn no one expected. Instead of trying to overpower fragility, researchers discovered something far more subtle. Structure can protect what raw intensity cannot. This is where quantum error correction enters, and why Google's progress matters more than dramatic claims of quantum supremacy. In peer-reviewed work published in Nature, Google and collaborators showed that by scaling what's called a surface code logical qubit, quantum errors can be suppressed rather than amplified. In simple terms, adding ordered structure increased stability, coherence lasted longer, information survived. This matters because it reveals a principle that echoes far beyond computing. In fault-tolerant quantum computing, moving beyond break-even means errors decrease as the system grows instead of spiraling out of control. Reliability emerges not from force, but from coherence. And in quantum consciousness, the same pattern appears. When your inner frequency is scattered, energy leaks. When the mind is noisy, perception fragments. But when alignment forms, awareness stabilizes. Reality doesn't respond louder, it responds cleaner. Once a quantum system becomes reliable, the question shifts. It's no longer, can it run? It becomes, what happens when it runs problems reality itself is made of? Problems involving materials, chemistry, complex dynamics, information woven into the quantum field. The same hidden layers your perception rushes against during moments of spiritual awakening and expansion of consciousness. If this perspective feels grounding, engage with it consciously. A thoughtful comment strengthens the exchange. A like helps this signal reach others sensing the same hidden reality. Subscribing supports a community focused on clarity, coherence, and awareness. And before we go further, answer honestly in the comments. Do you believe reality is fully predictable or fundamentally unknowable? I read every response because what comes next depends on how open your perception is willing to become. And now this is where the conversation crosses a line that feels almost unreal. Because this year, reports described Google running a new quantum algorithm on Willow that wasn't framed as a theory or a demonstration, but as a landmark step toward practical quantum computing, not symbolic value. Practical value, performance levels that, for that specific task, reached orders of magnitude beyond classical methods. What made researchers pause wasn't just speed, it was verifiability. Results that could be checked, validated, trusted, not believed, tested. That single shift changes everything. The moment a quantum system becomes both powerful and verifiable, it stops being a laboratory curiosity. It becomes an instrument, a new way of exploring nature itself. Quantum simulation moves from abstraction into materials science, drug discovery, molecular behavior, quantum information. Domains where reality is too complex for classical compression, too rich for linear intuition. And suddenly, we're no longer guessing. We're observing layers of the quantum field that were always there, but inaccessible. This is where a deeper fear quietly surfaces. Not fear of what the machine can compute, but fear of what it reveals. That reality may contain structures the classical mind cannot simplify into comforting stories. That perception has limits. That the hidden reality beneath appearances operates through coherence, frequency, and interaction rather than control. In quantum consciousness, this mirrors the moment of spiritual awakening when familiar explanations dissolve and awareness expands faster than certainty. As perception sharpens, the subconscious mind resists. Old narratives try to reassert themselves, but the signal is already clearer. The field responds not to force, but to alignment. Energy follows coherence. And just like the quantum system, once awareness stabilizes, reality begins responding in ways that feel precise rather than predictable. If this exploration feels grounded and valuable, engage with it consciously. A thoughtful comment strengthens this exchange. A like helps the signal reach others sensing the same expansion of consciousness. Subscribing supports a space dedicated to clarity, not noise. Because what we're approaching next connects this technological threshold to something deeply personal. How your own perception interfaces with a reality that may never have been meant to be fully understood, only directly experienced. So did Google's quantum chip actually break reality? Not in the way fear-driven headlines suggest. It didn't break physics. It broke the illusion that the universe must always be understandable in the way the human mind prefers. For centuries, we've relied on stories that make reality feel stable, linear, and controllable. Quantum systems quietly dismantle that comfort. Because once you accept that reality can generate states your classical perception cannot fully track or compress, you're forced into a question that feels spiritual, even when it's framed as science. What if consciousness is not a passenger observing reality from the outside, but part of the system that allows reality to appear at all? That's why this isn't really a story about a chip. It's about recognition. You've already felt moments where life refused to behave like a straight line. Moments where intuition arrived before explanation. Where synchronicities unfolded with timing that felt almost unsettling. Where your subconscious mind seemed to register something before your rational mind could catch up. Those weren't anomalies. They were brief alignments between perception and a deeper layer of the field. The chip becomes a mirror. It shows how easily the universe escapes simple prediction and how reality organizes itself through interaction, coherence, and probability rather than certainty. And when that mirror turns inward, something begins to loosen. The pressure to have everything figured out softens. Expansion of consciousness doesn't give you more answers. It changes the quality of the questions. It shifts how you experience energy, how you relate to frequency, how you sense movement and stillness inside your own awareness. This is where quantum consciousness becomes lived experience. The observer effect is no longer just an experiment. It's a reminder that perception participates. As awareness expands, the subconscious mind resists at first, searching for familiar explanations. But the signal grows clearer. Reality responds not to force or control, but to coherence. Vibration replaces certainty. Frequency replaces certainty. And the hidden reality beneath appearances starts to feel less abstract and more immediate. This shift often marks the beginning of a true spiritual awakening. Not dramatic, not performative, but deeply internal. A recalibration of perception. You begin to notice that life responds differently when your inner state stabilizes. That synchronicities feel less like coincidence and more like feedback. That intuition sharpens when mental noise quiets. The field doesn't change. Your relationship to it does. And this leads directly to the next doorway. Because if reality isn't strictly classical, if consciousness participates, if perception alters experience, then time itself may not be what we were taught to believe. That idea unsettles even the most grounded scientists, not because it's mystical, but because it reframes memory, anticipation, regret, and destiny. If time is not absolute, then neither is the story you tell yourself about where you are in life. Sit with that for a moment. Let it register without rushing to explain it away. At the end of this section, if something in you recognizes this shift, mark your presence consciously in the comments. Write, "I awaken," "I see beyond," or "I am expanding," whichever reflects your current state. Not as affirmation, but as participation. Because what comes next moves directly into why time itself may be an illusion, and why once you truly see that, your perception of your own life timeline can never return to what it was before. Stay with this awareness as you move forward. If this exploration of quantum consciousness, the quantum field, vibration, and spiritual awakening brought clarity or resonance, support its reach in a grounded way. Liking this video helps the algorithm recognize that this kind of depth matters. Subscribing keeps this channel active and focused, allowing more people to encounter these ideas and experience real expansion of consciousness. This is how a conscious community grows through intentional presence, not noise. One last thing before you step into the next doorway. Share this with the one person who's been feeling like reality is slightly off lately. They'll understand why. And when you're ready, leave a comment with a simple phrase that reflects where you are now. I awaken, I continue, or I see beyond. If you feel called, tell me the strangest synchronicity you've ever experienced. I'm shaping the next episode around what this community is noticing together. Join me in the next video, where we go even deeper and explore why time itself may be an illusion, and why seeing that clearly changes how you experience your entire life.